Well, welcome back, folks. And as you saw in that previous video clip at the Media Blast cabinet, I've prepared the air tube that goes from the air cleaner canister body to the carburetor. The dual color, that is the red and blue, that had been painted before always bothered me, so I thought, well, I'm waiting for the generator to come back anyway, and I thought this would give me an opportunity to just go ahead and paint this. I've debated back and forth whether to paint the canister itself, that is the vertical canister that the oil cup connects to. It connects to this. And I decided at this point not to, because if I was going to do that, I'd probably have to then go to a pressure pot spray or use the HVLP spray gun rather than just spray can. So for this, I'm just going to use the spray can. It's not my probably preferred way to paint the part, but that's what I'm going to do anyway. So I've got the primer here, and then of course the spray. I've got a couple more cans of this that you've seen me use before, so that's going to be my next project here. I'm not going to show all the details on that because it's simply just spray painting, but eventually you'll see this piece when it's finished. Thought I'd share with you the setup I've got outside. I'm going to try to make this quick because it's quite breezy today and I'm going to get a lot of wind noise. So real simple, I decided not to use the beam over the main door of my pole barn like you've seen me use before. It wasn't really necessary, so I just used this little quick setup with ladder on each side, 2x2 through the steps, and then a piece of heavy wire just to hold the pipe up so that I can get access to it from all sides and then spray it down. And this kind of paint, I've got to get all the coats on within like 30 minutes or so it moves quite quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that next. Again, I'm not going to record all of that. I don't think I mentioned this before. I did pick up a toolbox right here for my 8N. When I got the machine, it didn't have the original toolbox, and the previous owner didn't know anything about where it might be, so it's always been in the back of my mind to pick up a toolbox for it. You can buy decent, or at least they appear to be decent, repops or reproduction items. I got this one, and it is an original for about the same price as I would have paid for a reproduction. And since this one had the original paint and patina to it, I thought I would pick this one up and install it. And it's very solid. It's not rusted through. It's got a lot of surface rust, as you can see, but it's not rusted through. It doesn't have holes in it. I think the tractor this was on was probably stored inside or taken care of, generally speaking, so it's in real good condition for its age. And let's move in a little bit closer and I'll show you the inside. As I mentioned a moment ago, this toolbox is in really good shape. There's no dents, there's no wrinkles, it's not rusted through. And there you can see the inside. I did have to use new hardware because the bolts are long gone. So there's two bolts, one there, one over there, that just mount to captured nuts in the frame of the tractor. Eventually I'll come back around and paint those. They're zinc plated, so they're not going to rust anytime soon, particularly as I store my tractors inside. But I will have to touch those up eventually, but as you can see, I think they're outside of some surface rust. It is very solid. So for the price of a reproduction, I'm happy to have an original toolbox for the tractor. You saw me jack the right front wheel of the tractor up with the hydraulic lift and then support it with jack stands. My intention is to remove the grease cup on the end of the axle here and check the bearings and the grease. I don't typically like to work on equipment just supported by jack stands. You see it done all the time in videos, but I prefer to err on the safe side, so that's why I went ahead and put that jack stand behind the wheel, even though it would probably be okay. I I'm just not comfortable with just using a jack or hydraulic lift to support the equipment. Nonetheless, the goal here is to take that grease cup off. I want to check the play of the wheel on the end of the axle and determine whether in fact I have to eventually replace the bearings. Now, regardless of what I find today, my intention is not to replace the bearings in this session. I want to just get a sense of where we're at, what the grease looks like. I've never had these wheels opened up before, these grease cups removed. I'll do each side, of course. If I do think or suspect I need to replace the bearings, then I will do that probably next winter when I pull the tractor back in the shop. And that would be the time to pull the hub assembly off and replace the races and the bearings, and depending on what I find. Today is really just a check to see what it looks like in there and see if there's any movement in the wheel or the hub itself. I pre-loosened this cap while the weight of the tractor was on the wheel so it didn't turn, and it was not tight. It was snug, but not tight, so it should break right loose. And I have a pair of gloves over here because this could get messy. I have not opened this up yet. It's fine thread, you can tell that right away. A little grease in there. And obviously there's grease here. What I want to check for is end play in the hub and the bearings. And they're really, that is play in the steering linkage, what you see right there. But in terms of end play of the bearing, virtually none. Again, I can wiggle the wheel and the steering linkage will work. The bushings might be a little weak up there in the spindles, but I think the bearing is nice and tight, and it's greased. So I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm going to go ahead and put this cap back on, and we're going to check the other side. Once again, I pre-loosened this grease cup when the weight of the tractor was on the front wheel, and it was not particularly tight. It was snug. It wasn't going to come off, but this should just pop loose. And see what's inside. Yeah, it's about the same as the other one, maybe a little bit drier in terms of grease. There is a grease here, and once again there is no end play in that bearing at all, and it's quiet as can be. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Probably won't because it's quiet. The only play side to side is in the steering linkage, but there's none in the bearing itself, as you can see there. So I'm satisfied with that, and I'm not going to worry about it at this point. Now, there we go. Put the cap back on. Snug it down. I'll put a little bit more body English and tighten these caps a little bit more, and I got all the weight off the tractor, but I think our bearings are good at this point, and I don't think there's really anything at this point further that I really need to do. One other thing I've been thinking about is to bring the rear tire within one more size. Right now, if you measure center to center on these rear tires, they're at 52 inches. And my thinking was the standard or stock setting of the tire width, and that is you can move these wheels and hubs in and out, and there's a myriad of combinations that you can configure to get a wheel width that works for your application. And my thinking was that the stock wheel width was 48 inches, which is the narrowest I believe you can bring these wheels in. And I'm not going to go through all the details of how you reconfigure because it can be quite involved. But nonetheless, these wheels are at 52 inches. Thinking it was 48 was stock, so I was thinking, well, let's just bring them in to 48. And in fact, I discovered 52 is the stock wheel width for the rear. So my intention is just to leave it alone. I don't need to do anything further. In fact, the front, I'm not going to worry about at all. I think the stock 52-inch width is suitable for my application, so I'm not going to bother. Let me move around to one of the wheels and I'll explain just a little bit more. I'm not going to get a lot of depth, but a little bit more detail what I'm talking about when we discuss wheel width. This happens to be the right rear tire and wheel combination. And this is a two-piece assembly. So you have the inner dish right there, which you can see bolts to the hub. And then you have the outer rim, which bolts to that dish. And by flip-flopping that dish, you can flip that dish either way. You can position it like this or like this. And the outer rim can be positioned on either side of those lugs. You can see here, here, down in here. You can put the wheel on either side. You always have to have the direction of the tread facing the correct way. This is the correct orientation. So depending on the configuration, you might have to move the wheel and the rim from side to side, always the tread pointing in the right direction, and flip-flop the inner dish to one side or the other to, excuse me, bring the wheel out or in. And again, there's a lot of different combinations, believe it or not, more than you might think. But as I just said, I think this is a stock configuration, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'm expecting the next video we're going to be talking about the generator and where we're at with getting that rebuilt and the results of that process. So we're going to call this to a close. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.